everybody, it is Cinnamon Cooney, the Art Sherpa, and I'm so excited to share this Winter Wonderland fantasy piece with Aurora Borealis. I'm really excited to bring this painting to you today because it's so new painter friendly. It's one of my favorites that I've designed in a long time, and I just totally want to show you how to paint it. So get your brushes, get your paints, check out the materials, and I want to see you back at the easel right now. Come on, let's go. So the materials here, the paint is acrylic paint, heavy bodied. I have dioxazine purple, phthalo blue, phthalo green, titanium white, quinacridone magenta, and cadmium yellow medium in a hue. In the center here, I have acrylic glazing liquid gloss. I'm going to start out with a number 2 brush, and this is so that I can do this big, beautiful background easily. Now, this is a fine artist brush by Silver Company, but you can also just use a brush that you get at your local hardware store that is 2 inches. You just don't want it to shed a lot on your canvas. And you could use, if you had like a number 10 bright, you could use that as well. These are not limiting factors. I'm going to do something easy here, and I'm glad I get to talk to you about it. I'm going to dip my brush in the water, and I'm going to drag it off. Now for my regular brushes, that's enough water removal, but in a big brush like this, it's still going to be too wet. So I'm going to pull the extra water out with my towel. And that's something you might not know about when you were new to painting. And I'm going to pull out a little of my phthalo blue. Definitely going to use my glazing medium. You don't have to have the glazing medium in any way. You can thin your paint with water. I'm going to come back and forth at the bottom, just taking this back and forth. And you're going to see it leaves a nice blue streak down there. And I'm going to keep pulling this out. Notice that I'm working, even with my big brush, from the outside edge of my paint plop. And the reason that I do that is so that I can always control what's happening with my paint. Because if I were to mix it together, it would get really, really overused. Like I wouldn't be able to get the little mixtures that I wanted. So see how I'm just going back and forth, like back and forth with this brush. It's very nice. I'm going to get a little bit more. I'm going to take this just straight blue to about the halfway mark before I start, changing anything else about it. Just back and forth. I'm trying to cover all the canvas and get all those little white dots to disappear. It's really nice, and believe it or not, this little brush stroke that you're seeing is going to actually come into play and help our painting look really amazing. Just back and forth, pushing it back and forth into the canvas. So that's what we've got so far. Then we're going to start adding a little of the purple. See how I'm coming from, I'm not mixing these two together like this. I'm coming from the outside and just putting this on the tip of my bristles and then bringing it over to the blue. I'll put out some more of my medium, or I'll show you if I didn't have the medium and I was just going to use water, I would just dip a little of my brush in the water to thin it, but I would be very cautious because I wouldn't want it to get very wet. See how I did just the corner? And even that is quite a lot of water. So that's just something to think about. These really pull in water. Now right here, I'm going to work the brush back down. Can you see me pulling it back down into what I've already painted? I'm doing that to create a blend. Sometimes people think acrylic paint doesn't blend like oils, but it can. It just needs to be wet into wet. And so since this is still not dry and this is wet, I'm able to create a nice sky blend there that's really lovely that I'm going to like for later. As I'm going up the sky, I'm going to add even more dioxazine purple into my mix, darkening that sky. I'll show you again how I thin this enough to paint easily. Just the tip of the brush right there. Just the tip of the brush right there. So I'm using simple materials. They're not crazy or expensive or stressful. They're super simple. I'm controlling how much water goes into my paint My ombre, this blend on my sky, is blue down here and getting darker as we go up. And this is going to what makes it feel like a beautiful night sky, perfect for an Aurora Borealis. Back and forth on the flat blending, kind of reminds us of the past, of art shows gone by, fun stuff, relaxing stuff. Be sure and breathe while you're painting. Sometimes people hold their breath because they're nervous, because they worry about things being right or wrong. That isn't how art works. Just right there. See, very little. Controlling that. The bigger the brush, the more water it can pull in. So you've got to be careful how you do that. All right, I have a beautiful ombre. Now this brush has quite a lot of paint in it. In brush care, what you might not know is it's nice to get this rinsed out right away. So you can be letting your canvas dry, and go make sure that you wash all of the acrylic paint out of this brush and lay it flat to dry so it's ready for your next project. I'm going to do that right now. So I've got a nice number 10 here. I'm going to go ahead and get it a little bit wet. And this, because these are synthetic filaments, not hairs or bristles, I can just drag the water off the edge here. And I'm going to take just a smidge, like look, it's just barely dusted on here. I bet you could barely even see it on camera, of this blue over to my white, like this. And I'm making this soft blue color. I'm going to come up here, almost to the halfway point, just a little bit below it. And then at the halfway point, but a smidge inside, I'm going to make a little dot right here. These are the 2 points that are going to build my fun hill. On the edge of my brush, I'm going to take a little meandering hill. Now think about hills. They're not even and they're not symmetrical, and they tend to wander down. And it's okay for your brush to wander down and your hill to have character. Then the fun thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my hill back. This is perspective, and my stream that's frozen needs to narrow here at my vanishing point and widen up here where it joins my easel. So I know that I'm going to want it to end, this is about 4 inches from the right hand edge, so I'll make a little mark there so I know where I'm going. And I'm going to do a zigzag little snake. Sometimes when I'm having to do these, I think of people like Jackie Chan. It's going to wander back. Oh, wait, but we're going to zig back out and wander back. And zig a little bit out and wander back. So that is, and you can define this as you're painting in your hill with little brush strokes. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Now take this blue paint. I'm going to put out my glazing medium because, again, the studio is quite hot and quite dry. And I'm going to need a little of that. But you probably don't at home. You're probably fine with water. And I'm getting just the blue. I'm avoiding the blue and purple mix. And I'm just painting this in. My brush strokes are all leading towards the bank here. Where I've got to finish the edge, I'm taking my brush on the tip of the bristles and just dabbing them in. And I want this to be at a furthest point. And then I wander my brush down. Get a little blue, try to avoid the purple. If you get a little purple on it, it's okay. There really aren't mistakes in painting, and what a lot of people don't know is that acrylic paintings have kind of a rough stage. Everybody's, mine, yours, everybody's. And we call that the underpainting stage. And so all you've got to do in paintings is just hang in. Just be a little optimistic about the outcome, because you'll be surprised. I've painted with people a long time here now, and I have to say it's always so wonderful to see them be so excited about what they can do. I'm just going to make sure that this maybe kind of wanders out. It has a very uneven stream edge. And I have 2 places that I can kind of correct and adjust this. And I'm going to show you how, if you did anything that you didn't like, you can really easily fix it. And this is what I love about acrylic paint. Acrylic paint is very, very easy to fix. If something didn't go the way you wanted it to, you don't have to worry about that. You're going to do just fine. So I'm going to make another little dot here. And this dot is going to be maybe a couple inches from the edge here. And I'm going to make a little stream. It's going to wander in. See my reference here from my original design. Wander out. All right, so now we have a little stream that's got a little bank here. It's a happy little stream bank. It does its own thing. It's very whimsical. And now I'm going to, just a little bit lower than maybe this side, make another little bank. Another little bank. Coming down and paint that all in with this mixture of blue and white. Something I'm going to show you you might not know. I'm going to get all of my blue. See right there in the corner? And a lot of my white. If you look here on my brush, I haven't really mixed these two together because I'm going to let them mix on the canvas. Get a little bit here on the tips of the bristles, get a little bit of white. You'll notice it's still not that mixed, but when I put it on the canvas it sort of streaks. And what's nice about that, now I'm going to scrumble my little brush here on the edge of the bristles, working it in, making sure I'm painting to the bank. What that does for me is it creates a lot of tonal variance, which starts to put in all the light and shadow I would see in my snow. I'm going to have another layer of white that kind of streaks on top of this, but this is a very important base, and all of this texture and interest and character is important in your painting. If you want to know anything about painting or anything more about this painting, I highly suggest you go to TheArtSherpa.com for more information. All right, are you ready to put in your Aurora Borealis? This is my favorite part of this. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. I'm actually going to move down to a number 8. You could use a 6 or a 4, but I like the 8, bright. I just want a little more compact room on my brush to be doing my fun swirls as they go up. Now, if you're feeling insecure about laying in your swirl, a trick that you can do is, this is a charcoal white pencil. You could also use kids' chalk from a kids' chalk bucket. I'm going to come here and I'm going to lightly sketch in this first S line. So you can see it comes back, comes over, arcs out, and goes down. Because this is white, and because this is chalk, it's going to disappear into my paint. This is also going to help me a little bit when I'm trying to lay in my Aurora. Now I know I've got another little ribbon coming here. I looked at a lot of references of Aurora Borealis when I designed this, and took my favorite effects that I was seeing. So these are little S patterns here and here. And you notice that I might even be like over here a little bit, but I'm not worried about it. Now this one is going to come out from here about, oh, halfway up, maybe a little above. Actually, let's start it at the bend of the curve. We're going to curve it out, and its little S is going to go off that way, like that. Now, there's another little friend over here who comes up, goes out, and up. We're going to define that there. And it has a little separation ribbon that comes here. Now, I kind of know where all my ribbons are going to go. And since I know that, I can relax, enjoy the next part, and just play in the painting, which is the whole purpose of painting, is to just relax and let holiday stress go and play in the painting. The first color I'm going to do is a little blue and a lot of white. I want it to be a very light color. I'm going to use a little of my glazing here, but you could just also do this. You could just tip a little bit of your brush in water so the flow is improved. I'm going to come on the edge of my brush. I'm going to press in, swing out, This is a little bit like calligraphy. See how it goes a little wider there? I'm going to play with that and widen that out there. Let it be wider there and then narrow back here. This reminds me a little bit of the sky making music, in my opinion, and I enjoy it a lot. A little more of that. Just thinking about it and defining that in the sky. And it's really fun. It's okay if you get a dry brush on your ribbon. Now, the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe my brush off, but not rinse it. I'm going to grab a little purple and some white in my glazing, and I'm going to come right here, right next to this, and put a little purple ribbon coming up. And also, it's going to have thick spots and thin spots. And I think that's the important part of this, is make sure that your ribbons have thick spots and thin spots, and also be okay where the sky shows through. Right? Be okay. If you feel like you've got to smooth anything out, I'm going to wipe my brush here, and I've got the purple on it, but I'm not worried. I'm going to smooth it out. Right? That's what we're trying to do. Smooth that out so it has a beautiful flowing line. That's really nice there. I really like that. So I'm going to move over here. I'm going to rinse my brush out a little bit. I'm going to really enjoy my ribbon. Now let's say I did something with my ribbon I didn't like. I don't know, I had something here I didn't like. I just want to show you this because I'm going to show you how I paint that out and fix that boo-boo. Don't make that boo-boo. This is me just showing you not to worry about anything that's happening in your painting at this stage. Now, this part of the green ribbon, I really like to take a little of my phthalo green over to my yellow and make a very, very light color. Right? I'm going to come here on my edge, swirling around, and to the wide of my brush, just like music. Or at least what music feels like to me if I were to paint music. That's something you can do in art. I added a little more green to that mix. And I really like this. I'm going to get a little more here, just a little more of the green, just to give this ribbon some character. Play with this, have fun with this. I think I'd like a ribbon in this color over here. So I'm going to actually mix a little more. And you can see how it looks on my brush. It's a little green, it's a little yellow, it's right there on my brush. It's not mixed together in big swatch. I don't take a big amount here and a big amount here and go like this and try to make it go. It would be really hard to make my Aurora Borealis work with that ribbon. I'll even show you how hard that is. It gives me a little too much paint and I don't necessarily get the result that I want. It's a subtle thing, but it might be something that's messing you up that you don't know about. See how it's not dry brushy? Alright, I'm just going to blend that out. So just think about that, how your brush is loaded. Is it working with the load? I'm going to put a little white into this mix. So I went over to the yellow and pulled some and a little white on a little bead. And the reason I do a little bead, I'm going to come right here and just sort of shade this in to this ribbon. Because I want it to have a lot of color and energy, because the Aurora Borealis is really beautiful, and the photographers that take pictures of it do some really interesting things. If you come over and add a little blue to your brush right here and then a little white, you're going to get a really interesting color that you can come right here with on this inside and give this another little swath of color. Isn't that beautiful? Just subtle but beautiful. Now is a good time to rinse out your brush. If you're not wanting something like that there, what would you do? You would take your blue and your purple and mix your background for your sky again. And look at this, you're just going to paint right over it. Whenever acrylic paint is dry, you can paint right over it. And just blend it right out like it wasn't a boo-boo, like it didn't happen, like everything's okay. Just painting it out. Everybody has boo-boos in the painting, and all a boo-boo is, you can't really make a mistake in art because that isn't really a thing. You could do something that you, the artist, you, the creative person, was not perfectly happy with that you would want to change. There isn't really a right or wrong of art or a mistake of art. There's just sort of how you feel in relationship to your painting. So just always feel like if something doesn't make you happy, it's okay to dry it and change it. I'm going to rinse this out really, really well. And I'm going to make some other fun colors to put around. I really liked my purple. So I'm going to go back to my purple and white. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to add that on the inside of this green. Coming up. And then swirling out. It's really subtle, but I think beautiful. Then a fun thing I can do is I can come over to my quinacridone magenta. You could just go over to your magenta, whatever color that you have. I'm going to add a little white to it, but I'm going to avoid areas that I have yellow. If I got into my yellow, it would gray that color out and make it not as pretty as I might like. I'm going to come on the inside here and add this really fun, pretty color. Notice how it's thin in some areas, thick in some, and that's what makes it feel really beautiful. Isn't that fun? And you can even take that down. I'm going to come here and I'm going to add a little bit of this over here. A little pink, a little white. I might come up on the edge of my brush here, just wandering along my green line, which is quite dry. So I'm okay, I don't have to worry about the colors graying out. We want these colors to be bright on the Aurora. Bright on the Aurora. And you'll notice I'm doing the thing again where I'm making it wide here and narrowing it down into the ribbon. Super easy stuff. It's right there. The next fun color that I can start adding to my ribbons, right? I'm just going to look for different places I feel like I want more colors and I want more fun. You really can't do a wrong color mixture here because the Auroras come in just such a wide range of color. So I'm taking a little of my magenta over to my yellow and I'm making an orange and I'm pulling off a little white. I'm definitely going to need a little more of this. You could use water. And I'm going to come on the inside here. And blend a little ribbon of this bright color right there. That's really beautiful. And I'm going to blend a little ribbon of this bright color on the inside right here. And maybe come around the outside as well, like this. Every time you paint an Aurora, it'll take on a different quality, different feeling, but it'll always feel really fun. I'm going to put some of this fun color here. The white. Maybe on the outside here. This is dry now, so I don't have to worry about the purple and yellow. If your ribbon isn't dry, you may want to wait so you get a bright color. Because if the purple and the yellow mixes, it's going to get a little bit dull, and you want it to be like popping. So I feel like we need a little more balance in our auroras. So I'm going to rinse, rinse, rinse out my brush. I'm going to make sure it's quite clean. And I think I need a little purple and a little white, avoiding my yellows. Maybe on the inside here, add a little dynamic drama to this. And a smidge on the outside. And then I'm going to come get a little of my blue and white. See if I have any place that I'd like to add some more color, which I think I do. All right, let's put some of that right here. Beautiful flow. Maybe a little bit here again. Flowing down. Come over here and add a little of the blue and white. Again, I want a little more white to it. I want it to be a little brighter. I'm going to come right here, wide here, and then tapering down. Smidge there. That's all we need to do. Look at that beautiful flowing sky. That's looking super gorge. I'm loving it a lot. We can even put a little extra drama right here if we want, or not. You know, a little bit of the purple and white. Just make sure that this is really popping as the ribbon of color that it is. You'll find that it's the streaks and flows of these that make them really vibrant and dynamic. Now we've got to let this dry. You can dry it with your hair dryer, or you can just do something else while the painting is drying, but you want it to be dry. You'll know it's dry when it's not shiny or reflective, or if you touch it, it doesn't get on your finger. Let's get the next part done. So let's start putting in our stream, our hills, and our trees. This is a really fun part of the painting. I'm going to start with the stream. I'm going to take my number 8 bright, and I'm going to come back and mix my blue and purple. You can see that just on the tip of my brush there. I'm going to add some of my glazing to that, or you could dip the corner in water just to thin it a bit. Then I'm going to come here and make a dark little dash back here, going back and forth on my brush. I'm going to start creating the sense of dark reflections on the frozen water. You can see I'm tucking it up against the embankment here and pulling this in, creating some depth to this space, because water, when it's running or even when it's frozen, is reflective. If you don't have glazing liquid, remember, dip to the corner to improve the flow. Just want to make sure you know both ways to do it, so no matter what, you're getting a great painting at home with your friends and family. Take a deep breath. Let any of the stress dip in the corner. See how little water I'm adding, but it just creates a little bit of fluidity. I'm going to push this little embankment back. Push that one a little bit back. And then come across here. Now the next fun thing that you can do is pull out some white and come and make maybe a little line here, a little line there. Try to keep these lines level, and then what you're going to do is pull them down. Some of these should be pulled longer and some shorter, just on the tip of the bristles, as straight up and down as you can make it. You're telling some reflective stories. And a dash, and then a little reflection down. See how that creates a reflection in the water? Where it's frozen from the sky. And across. Just a little something. Another one right here. If you need to adjust your canvas, go ahead and do that. I'm going to need to. And remember, if you do this in a way you don't like, you can always go back and paint it out. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Take it to this time to get a little of my white paint just on a bead on the end of my brush there, and kind of have fun coming down here along the embankment. And I imagine that this is like I'm laying snow. And I'm going to tuck this just a little bit so that I get a very tapered stream that's disappearing. Then on a soft, dry brush, I'm going to come over my snow, layering down like little patches of clumpy snow. Now, I have to like imagine this a little more because of where I live, but I lived in the snow in the past. I've been in Vancouver and all kinds of things. So I've seen some snow. It's really quite delightful stuff for the first 2 weeks. And everybody who lives in snow knows what I mean. Just making sure that the blue is peeking out so that our landscape feels like it's got structure and texture. See, I'm just taking the paint, soft brush pressure. This is as soft as if a butterfly wing were coming over the canvas. If I pressed in hard, it would look like that. It wouldn't look quite the same. I'm going to soften that just in case I did that. I want a lot of this to just sort of stick through. I want it to be rough and have a lot of character. I'm still following that first brush stroke. I'm just making it feel like we've got a beautiful, cold, snowy wonderland happening here. Isn't hard. I come along my bank edge. Just following the slope of the hill and enjoying that. The way the paint, picking it up, you can see the bead, just letting it fall across my canvas. I really like that. Doesn't that look nice? I'm going to come across this other side and do exactly the same thing again. Coming along the top of the ridge line and pulling back little bits of snow up the mountain. Doing it softly, so lots of mountainous. Well, I guess it's a hill. It's not really a mountain. Maybe it feels like a mountain inside. It's a molehill. Just pulling it up. Breathing in, breathing out. The stroke goes down. It's just pretty relaxing. Remember not to take this too seriously. This is art. The whole goal here is to take a little time for yourself in the hectic, busy pace of life. Just let it go. Which you should never, never say around toddlers, because they will sing, won't they? They all have a song in their heart and they're waiting to share it. And you should have a song in your heart. I hope you do. You're waiting to share. So I move my canvas to make it easy. Remember, you can flip these around, you can change them. This is your space, and you can make it be different how you need to be comfortable. Just having a nice loose stroke. A lot of canvas is peeking through. I feel like I got a little too orderly here, so maybe I'll break in a little extra high patch of snow in little dashes so that it's not stripy. If you find you got stripy, just come back and break that up. Don't be stressed about it or worried. Now I'm going to rinse my brush out, and I'm going to add some reflections into my stream from the Aurora. I'm going to take a little of my green over to my yellow, dealing with the heat of the light. And I'm going to come here, and I'm going to pull down a little reflection. Cross and then down. Now I'll come maybe a little bit here, a little bit down. Something that says that what's happening, this magic light show in the sky, exists down here. That's all we're trying to talk about. I'm just letting just softly with the brush. I'm not trying to make the stroke be perfect, and that really helps me. I'm trying to do this. Now maybe I'll do a little of my pink, a smidge of my yellow. You might need some white for this. Coming down some of that, maybe right here. Like that. That's good. Just try to pull a balance. Got one right here in the middle. You can see I can even layer them over each other to break my line. Oh, but I went a little bit angled there, so I've got to come back, and that's just really important to try. And I just wiped my brush and pulled it down. Too much pigment. Trying to make sure that these lines are horizontal and vertical and not going at a diagonal space. I'm going to rinse my brush out a little bit. Come and get a little purple, maybe a little white. Just put that a couple places. Now in a little bit, I might come with some more dark blue and some white reflection to define that, but I need to let that dry so I can start the next part of my landscape, which is the trees. Now, you're going to need to thin your paint a little bit, so I've just dipped some. I'm going to come here and I'm going to pull it out. It's too thin there. You're going to want to have it be maybe like less than 10% water. But you see it's kind of like the consistency. You can see it getting all up into the brush of olive oil, or maybe a little closer to pancake batter. Just not so heavy bodied. Load up your brush. Just wiped it off because it's too much. Right there in the tip. Come right here. Come a little bit past the start of the hill line. I want you to draw a soft line on the edge of your brush, straight up. It needs to be a pretty fine line like mine. And how I get that is by having very light pressure. And then you're going to just flare down like this. This is sort of fun. You don't want to be like this. And if you are, you can fix it by just flaring out. Flare it out. Load up your brush. Now, the tree should be slightly wider at the base than at the top, so be sure that you widen it as you come down. I'm on the edge of my bristle and I'm flicking out. As I get down at the bottom, I make that a little bit thicker. Alright, if I like that, I get another one going. Load it on the edge of my brush here. Maybe this one will be sitting right on the edge here. Very light line. And listen, if you're having trouble getting these light lines, switch to a smaller brush. It can take a while to learn to soften your pressure. And it's perfectly okay. These come in teeny tiny sizes, so always work a brush that is comfortable for you. I'm pulling down. I'm just, you can see I'm on the corner here, and I'm just flicking out. And I'm sort of weaving it. And then as I get to the bottom, I get more emphatic about my brush strokes, and I'm flaring them out. These really aren't hard trees. I'll pull it around. And you just feel that nice little white tree happening there. It's happening really well. Alright, there we go. Load it up again. I'm going to come over a little space because it's nice to have a space between trees. Trees sometimes don't, you know, grow in nice clusters. They do their own thing. Seeds are dropped randomly. I'm going to do a pretty short tree here. See, I've got even a little wobbly in my brushstroke, but I don't have to worry about that because trees are not orderly or perfect. I'm on this corner and flicking out. You see that creates almost the tree stroke for me, doesn't it? On the corner, I'm flicking out. You can totally do this. Yeah. You could do this with a 1/2 inch angle or even a small shader flat if you were having trouble. Take off here, get a little extra water. You saw me just in and come here and thin it a little bit because you don't want it to be fully heavy body. If your student paints, you won't need to do that part as much because they won't be as robust in the body of the paint. Now this one's going to be taller. There we go. Grow them up. Grow them up. And a little too much paint, so I'm going to wipe off and reload. See the load? And how I'll fix that is I'll just come up to the top and taper that out and then back to that corner brush stroke. Back to the corner brush stroke, which I could do with a small shader, I could do with a small flat, I could do with a little detail. A lot of ways to do this. I'm going to let this tree lay over that first tree. Working the corner to get the effect. Pulling it out. The goal is to make it wider and flared out. You can be in front of his friend a little bit. Pulling it out. Maybe a little bit down here. If the line in the center is showing up too much, just come back with a little extra paint. Paint it out like that. See that? Paint it out. So now I can't go back up and get my tapered stroke. It's got to be an outward flick like this. And if you're feeling unconfident about it, you can always practice it on a scratch piece of paper. We need a little tree right here. Just a little guy. Flicking out. Soft like a butterfly wing, kissing the canvas, flicking out. Trying to keep it random. If you have to just sort of dab up top, make him feel more like a little tree, and he can layer over his friend here. He's right there at the edge of the bank. He gets the biggest drink of water in the spring. That's what he gets. Look at how nice he is. Now while I'm here about to cross the stream, I can put in some extra little reflections. I can come on the edge of my brush and I'm just dabbing. Look at this, just dashing. You can even pull down a couple of those dashes, just in some spots. So you don't pull down the whole dash, just some of it. Get a little more paint. Just little reflections, little soft marks. Show the light dancing on the surface. As I get closer to my picture planes, closer to myself, the viewer, they become stronger, more defined. Here we go. Look at that. Just a beautiful reflection. Let's load up. Let's do some more trees. We're going to start over here. We're going to come down a little bit, but maybe this guy's a little shorter. Soft brush stroke, fairly thin, using the edge of the brush. And you can see that the paint is creeping up my brush. And I'm going to want to wipe it off and reload at the tip. See how? Kind of wiped it off. I don't want it to get up into the metal. Just pulling the dash. If you don't like this size brush, you know, you can always switch. Look at this. To like this number 2, I'll load it up and show you what that would be like. Sometimes it's easier when you're new painting to take it to a smaller brush. See? But maybe you only have one brush. You can do a lot with one brush. I can do a whole painting with one brush. Just flaring that out. Look at that. I'm going to pull my paint out, load it up, have it right there on the tip of my brush, and I'm going to make a very tall tree. I'm going to come down a little bit in front of my hill. When I layer like this, it creates depth in my painting and gives a sense of space and scale. And then I'm going to do some lovely little happy flicking brush strokes out. I love this type of pine, maybe where you live. I'm going to dip my brush in the water just a little bit to thin it. You can see the consistency is very different than this. And just keep pulling it down. If I over thinned my paint, it would be like a watercolor and it wouldn't cover or stick the canvas very well. That would not be helpful. I have a lot of space paintings. Really enjoy them. I enjoy to do paintings with Aurora Borealis and space scenes. I think that they're a lot of fun to do. Just picking this out. If you need more paint for the bottom, just get it, because you want this to be thicker at the bottom. And cover up on the hill a little bit so it feels that this tree is substantial and strong. And remember, if your trunk is showing through your paint, you can always come back with a little extra and break that up. See, it's no trouble at all. Let's put in another tree. Now, one of the things that I'm doing here that helps me is I'm letting the paint showing through a little bit create depth and dimension in my trees. It's kind of fun. I'm going to do a much shorter tree. He's going to live right here and he's going to be short. He's going to come to about there. I'm going to just, he's new to the hill. He's still making friends, getting to know everybody. How you get the line, if you're wondering, is if the paint dries before you get to flick out. That's how that happens. But again, 2 coats and it goes away, so don't stress on anything. That would be the opposite goal of painting, giving him some character. All right, maybe an even shorter friend. These are two new little buddies to the hill. You can make them taller, shorter. Just tell a forest story that makes you happy. It's your winter wonderland. Here, everything is so perfect. And just flicking that out. It's fun. And you can just see that right there. See how it's just right on, just the flick. Fun little flicking. Kind of creates fluffiness. The roughness of the stroke creates a lot of texture in the tree. I think I need another tall tree. So I'm going to load right up on the edge of my brush. Nice amount of paint there. This one's going to be tall. Let's grow him up, grow him up, grow him up. That seems very tall compared to his friends. And soft little flicking coming down like a little butterfly kiss. That's the trick. Again, remember, you can practice on construction paper or any colored paper to see how you like your stroke. You can totally do that. The goal is to find your space and your fun moment in the painting. Remember not to compare to other people. That's not what art's about. And painting with your friends. Definitely say nice things about each other's paintings, but don't compare. Don't feel bad about your painting. Your tree is a very good tree. All right, look at that. We pulled that out. Taking that deep breath, letting any holiday stress we have go. Now that that's there, we get to add the most magical part, one of my favorite parts of a painting like this, which is the stars. Now, in my other most popular Aurora painting, we did a splatter star, but in this one I'm going to show you a new trick that gives you a little more control over how you can paint stars on your canvas. Let me find a detail brush. So I'm going to use a number 1 shader. You could use a number 2 shader. You could use a 5/0 detail round. What you want is just a small brush that gives you a lot of fine line control and something that has a small back end. And you're going to come over and let's take a brush and thin. Oh, that had some blue paint in it. So see how that went wrong? Let's try with a clean brush. You just want to make sure that you're thinning some paint so it's more fluid for when you do this. You can also use craft paint, which will make this easy work. Craft paint is slightly softer bodied. Now that I have that out, I'm going to dip my brush in there on the back and come and have some fun. And I'm going to make little dots with the back of my brush. When my brush stops having enough paint on it, I'll go back and dip again. But what's nice is that some of the dots will be bigger, some of the dots will be smaller. To make a small dot, I have very light pressure. I try to break up where the dots go on my brush so that they aren't all clumped together in one space, because these are supposed to be stars. And you can just spend as much relaxing time as you like doing stars. There's also a really wonderful nail tool, crafting tool, that people use to make dots, and you can use that as well. But if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be in any trouble. You could still do this. See how I'm just not letting anything stop me. Let's put some stars between trees because they would peek out, and you always want to make sure that you've got stars between your trees. Peek those stars out. Dab, dab, dab. Just putting little dots. Uh-oh. I'll have to fix that boo-boo because I let my hand drag on the canvas. I'll show you how I do that. I have to let it dry though, don't I? You probably guessed that it's very similar to how I fixed my earlier boo-boo. I can even come with my little brush and a little bit of water, but I'm just going to take a little bit of blue paint I'm gonna come here and I'm just gonna paint that little problem out so that it doesn't show up so bad. You could mix a little blue and purple to get the exact kind. Just something to make that go away. And that happens. You got to watch that your hand isn't dragging. That's a big problem. I do it a lot because I rest my hand on the canvas. Any dots that you don't like, anything you ever do in your canvas that you're not fond of, let the paint dry. And you'll be able to fix it. Just all the way up here. So you just put stars till your sky is as sparkly as you feel like it ought to be. And the thing that I do to make it feel a lot more like stars, besides having bigger ones and smaller ones, is I twinkle some of my stars. So I'm going to take this small detail brush. You could do a brush like this. Again, you just want something that gives you a very fine line. Some people really like a paint pen. And that's something you used to be hard to get, but you can get at the craft store now. But how I twinkle a star is I make a line straight up that's very fine. Another one coming right down, doesn't even touch my dot. Straight out, diagonal, 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 diagonal. And you should have a couple of these. You're going to want some that are bigger and smaller. Some twinkles are smaller. Let's put a nice twinkle over here. I feel like this would have a great twinkle on this area. Not every star. And some little ones too. Maybe over here. Just have some fun. Little lines twinkling out. These could be like sisters that are twinkling. You just want enough stars twinkling that it feels like a starry sky to you. Does that feel like a starry sky? I really like it. Pretty happy with it. Plus, I feel really relaxed after having a nice day of painting. Now, the last thing that we can do is sign our painting. I'm going to sign mine with a little bit of blue paint and my small brush here. I'm thinning some paint. You can see I just dip in the water a little bit. I don't get it soaking because, again, I'm not trying to do watercolor here. I'm just trying to thin my heavy-bodied paint. And I'm going to put my little signature here. This is just something I like to do. You don't have to do that. Just a lovely way to say, I'm finished. I liked what I did. I'm making an impression for this day. All right. That was fantastic. That was a lot of fun. I really hope you're going to keep painting. If this is your first painting, don't let it be your last. Keep going. Hopefully you've been painting with me for a while and this is one of many, many projects that you've enjoyed doing and you really like this twist on the Aurora theme. If you want to know more about anything that I'm doing in art, any of my free video lessons, any of the extra supplemental stuff that we have, you can go ahead and check out TheArtSherpa.com. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you thought this was great, and tell your friends that there's great free videos out there on YouTube that they can watch at any time. I want to see you at the easel really soon. Be good to yourselves, be good to other people. Okay, bye-bye.